Hello, hello, and welcome to Golden Threads, weaving ancient wisdom into modern bliss. I'm your host, Helena Grant, and I am thrilled today to welcome Suzanne Giesemann. Suzanne is a messenger of hope who shares the awakened way, a path to knowing who you are and why you're here. Whether in her books, recordings, her classes and workshops, her weekly radio show, or her one-on-one sessions, Suzanne provides stunning evidence of life after death. She's a former U.S. Navy commander who served as commanding officer and as an aide to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Suzanne's gift of communication with those on the other side has been recognized as highly credible by noted afterlife researchers. She brings messages of hope, healing, and love that go straight to the heart. Suzanne, what a tremendous honor to welcome you today. Thank you for being here and being a part of Golden Threads.
Well, thank you for offering me this opportunity to share with others. That's what it's all about, Helena.
It really is sharing this beautiful interconnectedness that we all have. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I love that. I just got an email from somebody today showing me this web that we're all part of. And the more you dig into it, it just grows, doesn't it?
It does indeed. And that is sort of the subliminal reference of the Golden Threads and the weaving is that we are so connected, and that's easy to lose sight of and forget. So it's such an honor to have these conversations to bring that back, that truth back into the vernacular. So Suzanne, I would love to just start right off with a little bit more information about your experience being a U.S. Navy commander and now being this renowned spiritual teacher and guide. Please give us more information about that.
Yes, as you were reading my biography there, the more time goes on and the deeper I get into this part of my life's journey, the more strange my past history sounds to me. When you're talking about me being a commanding officer and aide to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, I listened to that as if it was somebody else, because that was another lifetime in terms of life experiences now. And I look back on who I used to be, and I'm very proud of that time in my life. And I loved serving my country. I was so proud to be in the uniform and so proud to get to serve at the highest levels of the military. But I had no idea when I was serving in that capacity that I would one day be on this spiritual path and helping so many more people than I did in the military on a global basis now, serving humanity instead of just one country. And it's such an honor, but it came about as the result of my stepdaughter's death. And so, you know, it's one of those things, if I had known what I know now, that there is no death, would I have changed anything? You say, you know, I would give anything to have her back. And yet I know that Susan, my stepdaughter, is not gone at all. So I have just experienced a complete transformation of my life, of mostly of myself, and actually wouldn't change any of it right now.
And that is such a gift to be able to come from a place of full acceptance for what is.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's very important, though, as we talk about mediumship and connecting across the veil, that anybody who's listening understand that I had no idea until Susan's death that there really is an afterlife. I had no idea that I would be working as a medium. So I'm not what people call a born medium. Many people I meet have been seeing spirits their whole lives, those who I train to be mediums now. But I'm not one of those. So I give hope to those who think maybe I can do that too. Yeah.
Well, and so, yes, it was more something that you came into, but do you think that that capacity just existed all along?
I know that we all have this capacity because I know the connection happens at a soul to soul level. And it happens when we raise our consciousness high enough to see beyond the human story. That's when the gifts of the spirit that are all available to all of us unfold. But I do also feel that some people have a calling to be a medium and to really open up that connection. That having been said, we never know who that is. So I encourage everybody to investigate.
Investigate and explore.
Yeah.
And so what does this term evidential medium mean specifically?
It means that when I sit to connect with someone's loved one across the veil, I'm not satisfied unless I get hardcore, verifiable evidence about that person in spirit's life that I couldn't possibly know. And even sometimes that my sitter, the client, doesn't know either. They have to validate it with someone else so that we know I'm not just reading their mind, and that these aren't just nice, sweet messages that sound nice and are things we'd like to hear. Those come, but they're backed up with the evidence. So it's this wonderful balance every time we connect of verifiable facts and data and beautiful messages. Not just beautiful messages, but important healing messages.
Yeah, it almost seems like the evidence is sort of like the vessel. So it's like you can hear this, you can experience this, and you really can believe it. It sort of appeals to our need for proof.
Well, it depends on who needs it. It's very interesting that if I have a client who's skeptical, I don't necessarily know that, but the spirit world knows it, and they get more evidence than other people. Then there are some that get more messages than evidence, and it turns out, oh, I know this is real. That's their attitude. So I just surrender what comes through to those in spirit, but they know that every reading's got to have some evidence just to satisfy me with my background.
So it's for everyone, the evidence.
Well, I never lose the awe, the joy. That's why I love doing this work. I may be sitting with someone in terrible grief and they can't even work up a smile, but inside I'm rejoicing every time I get a hardcore piece of evidence. If I could just share, I remember a recent reading I did with a mom who was in terrible grief, but there was this one moment, and she gave me permission to share this, when I said, your son just showed me a little domino. And she went, oh, and her face lighted up for the first time, this beautiful smile. I have goosebumps. It was the most beautiful piece of evidence he could have given us, because it turns out his dad owned multiple Domino's pizza franchises. He worked as a manager at Domino's, and one of the only belongings he had when he died was a little Domino's truck. So, you know, even through her grief, the joy brought out what's always inside all of us, this celebration, you know?
Oh my goodness, I'm feeling so many things right now. What an incredible story. And it almost sounds to me as if that evidence creates a channel for the messages to come through, especially when someone is experiencing those depths of grief and loss that make it hard to hear things, even those messages of healing.
Oh, yes. And many of my clients, I give them recordings and they listen later and hear things they didn't hear because they were focused on one thing or too stuck in their grief. I do want to follow up that story by saying that her husband wrote to me after the reading, about 5 days after the reading. And he said she had cried every day for 2 years since her son passed. And she had not cried a single day since the reading yet at that point. So the healing that can take place in an hour from evidence that our loved ones are not truly gone, that they're still part of our life, is what makes this work for me absolutely sacred.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and I love too that you spoke about surrendering to that aspect of your ability to receive these messages and deliver them. I'd love for you to speak a little bit more about that theme of surrender. I feel like that is just sort of the key to everything.
It is the key to everything, but what is it that we're surrendering? We're surrendering the belief that we are these limited human beings in a body. We couldn't do this kind of thing of mediumship if that were so. It's surrendering the beliefs and the story that we're limited, finite, temporary, or permanent beings, and temporary beings, and stepping into our eternal aspect as a soul. So literally every time I connect, I actually teach a method with 7 steps. And one of those very important steps is I surrender. So just for a little while, I'm not even going to focus on the Suzanne story. I'm not going to be filled with fear that nothing will happen or doubt that I won't get accurate information. I set all that aside, and you just allow spirit to flow. And with everything in life, when we get ourselves, our little selves, out of the way, magical things happen. But it's not magic at all. It's our true miraculous nature as part of this awesome field of pure potential.
Yes, indeed. And it extends in every direction and and endlessly.
Yes.
It's such an incredible opportunity, but of course it can sometimes feel a little bit overwhelming for us as humans. So very helpful to have, you know, that connection through people like you that can connect so easily with the other side of the veil.
If
And
I could add to that, what you're saying there, that's the beauty, one of the fringe benefits of mediumship. It shows you that love is eternal, that our loved ones who have passed are still here. But it also shows us that we have a dual nature as well. And that's our human story and our unlimited selves as the light, as souls. So when you realize that, you can actually train yourself to shift your point of view when things get overwhelming and just step into the power that's always flowing through us, that's actually breathing us right now.
and it's breathing us, whether we are going to the grocery store or we're sitting in meditation. And that's actually, I think, also the beautiful thing about being human and having this, you know, body that can be a little bit of an inconvenience sometimes. But that we get to experience this material world, and that we get to create, that we get to be this vessel of spirit that has so much inspiration and so much love for us, but that can't do that. It can't bring the physical into a new form. We do that.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that you get this.
I find this so fascinating, and again, just so important. So I'm sure, Suzanne, in all of these years that you have been pursuing this path, and how long has it been since you have been?
Well, Susan passed in 2006, and I began meditating that week in hopes of finding out if she still existed. That's what started everything opening. My very first connection with spirit, personally connecting with a spirit, someone who had passed, not just my own guides in meditation, happened in 2009. And that's when I just opened this all up and started practicing within a year. So I've been doing readings for 11 years.
Wow. Wow. And in that time, what sort of things have you learned from this level of communication?
Well, the beautiful thing is that the journey's ongoing for all of us. And I would never say I'm enlightened or fully awakened, because we don't know how far that awakening goes. So the fun part about mediumship is that it just keeps getting better. Like the journey, the more we excavate the layers of stuff hiding our true light inside, the brighter we shine, the greater life flows. And who wouldn't enjoy every moment of that? Even the challenges, there's an underlying awareness, a knowing everything's in perfect order, and that changes everything.
It does, that knowing and that trust in it too, because on so many levels we do know that, but we don't always trust it. We convince ourselves that it can't possibly be the case, and yet it is.
That's how I've transformed the most. I totally trust it. I've had so many moments, some of them literally dropped me to my knees in awe, that have left me with an unerring awareness and knowing that there is so much more, and we're being guided by it, and we are so loved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that is, I mean, your daily way messages that get sent out every day. That is the resounding message, is you are so very loved. And
Every day. Yeah, they end with it
every
that
day.
way. Can
Yeah.
we hear that too much? Never.
No, we really can't, because
Yeah.
again, it's so easy to forget and convince ourselves that it's not the case, and
Yeah.
yet it is.
You know, most of us have spent a lifetime thinking the opposite, with other people who thought that, telling us the same thing. So to hear it over and over again, that's part of the spiritual path.
Yeah. Well, and also what you said about excavating is that we have so many layers that get put in place throughout this human experience, throughout our lives and what we go through. So it almost creates this, interference with that message, which is why we need to hear it all the time.
Right, but you also come to know that that is part of the human story. That's part of what we do. We all do that. You come in here, this perfect little light with no layers. The layers add up, and then you get to a certain point, and either just the evolutionary impulse in the heart or some external event like a tragedy causes that turnaround, and now you start taking the layers off.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually quite brilliant, and it works to bring us back to love.
It does. It does. And I feel personally, and I know many people do as well, that grief has this incredible capacity to deepen us. And actually, because we have lost someone that we love, we are able to love that much more and experience love on a whole new level. As long as we are, again, healing and not letting that grief create those layers that would interfere with that capacity.
Yes, and I have a weekly radio show with Unity Online Radio, and I bring in so many guests who have gone through grief, and I bring in grief experts, and it's such a different topic than I used to think. It's like, grief, no, I don't want to feel that, get that away from me. And it's learning that this is as much a part of life as the celebration and the healing that it leads to when we don't push it away, when we accept it and learn from it, is a whole new way of looking at it, but much more healthy than most people deal with challenges.
Yes. And of course, now we're in sort of a global grief of a way of life has completely disintegrated, which of course was an illusion to begin with. And so I just wonder if there has been more messaging around that. I mean, I imagine people are looking that much more for these messages of healing. So how has that affected your work? What messages are you receiving?
Just from the very beginning of the coronavirus, my guides have said it's all about coming to raise your consciousness, not give in to fear, recognize the story for what it is, and find the difference between the story and the true self, which has no story. So it really is an opportunity. And I just recently posted on my Facebook page, how many out there have these moments where you want to kick and scream like a little child and say, no, I want to go back to life the way it was. But that's not what life is about. It's about change and accepting that and flowing with what comes. When we do that, we just don't suffer. Suffering really is optional. Pain may not be, but suffering is optional.
Yeah, pain is inevitable.
Yeah.
Pain is inevitable. It's just how we choose to sort of process it and experience it. So I'm curious about sort of the loved ones and the ancestors that you are able to communicate with on the other side. What are their, you've touched on it a little bit, but like more specifically, what are their sort of perspectives on our experience going forward? We've kind of like leveled off with the whole coronavirus thing, but now it's what lies ahead.
Well, it's the guides, my guide Sanaya, who have been giving me the upper level oneness view that I just shared with you. But my readings have not changed at all since the coronavirus started, because those across the veil have not had some rapid catapulting into awareness either. They're continuing to grow at each soul's level, at each soul's rate. They're growing as well as we are and learning. And I have an ebook on my website. Anybody that goes to SuzanneGiesemann.com, right at the bottom is a free ebook. And at the end of it is this explanation of what it's like in the afterlife, what happens when we pass. And you really do reap what you sow. The more awakened you are here and now as to who we are as expressions of love and what is so important in life, connecting and serving and sharing love, then the higher will be the level that you achieve when you cross the veil. So I see that in those who come through from the other side. Some give me this symbol like charades, and that means, oh my gosh, my eyes were open. And I know that's somebody who didn't even believe in an afterlife when they cross, and their loved ones validate that. Oh no. And I say, this, you know, your dad's saying, I can't believe I'm talking to you from here, you know, and they say, that's my dad, you know. But then I had a guy last week or a couple weeks ago, somebody's husband, and he showed me that he meditated for decades before passing, and that he skipped right over the doing human things in the astral level, you know, just doing all the things he didn't get to do while he was here. No, he didn't need any of that human stuff. He skipped right up to the just being the light, and yet he embodied his story to connect with his wife during the reading. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. And it actually ties in with a big question that I have about when the spirit crosses over, and this concept of, you know, I was just wondering, like, do they suddenly know everything once they leave the physical body? But you're saying that they are evolving. They are also learning in their journey.
You know, we're still patterns of consciousness, experiencing thoughts, sensations, and feelings even across the veil. And so again, how evolved is that consciousness when you cross the veil? I have a dear friend, Brenda Baker, who passed 2 years ago, and she's now my guide in my readings. She went pretty much to the head of the class and is now helping us here. Incredible evidence to back this up. But she has said over and over, I'm not suddenly omniscient. You know, she doesn't know it all. That comes with more evolution of the soul.
Yeah, and kind of the sense of there's always more to learn.
Yeah, that's what makes this so much fun, huh?
Yeah, it is. We get to be students, you know, for all eternity.
And some people say, oh my God, really? But it's a choice. It is absolutely a choice. If we realize that source is at the core of all of it, maybe the story can just decides, I am going to just dissolve back into the light. We do it for the fun of it, for the experience of it. And I know that sounds strange to some people's ears, especially if they're suffering. But when the suffering leads us to understand that the basic essence is this desire to create and to create experiences that help to bring more love into being, like an artist or a musician that just wants to add more and more beauty, then we can see that even the most beautiful paintings have some dark spots, don't they? And that adds to the beauty.
It does. It gives contrast. You know, if it was all just light all the time, we wouldn't have any frame of reference. If it was all happiness and pleasure all the time, we would get bored.
And yet an important point to that is, if we understand that underlying the story is this pure being, this pure consciousness, and we understand that it is not at all hurt by the dark times, that gives us a sense of peace that underlies everything. Yes. We know that this too shall pass, and it does. And what held us up during those times is that underlying omniscient, omnipotent source. That is us.
That is us. Yes, it is us, and there is some sort of beautiful, you know, astounding divine plan in place that we don't have to concern ourselves with. We just have to sort of get on the boat and ride along with the currents and the waves.
Yeah.
And find joy. I think that's the real choice, is almost really surrendering to joy. You know, that's easy for people.
I can't believe you said that, because that's what Source told me to call it. Don't call it God, don't call it spirit, call it joy. And when we're going through our dark periods, that may sound like nonsense, but it's not a human joy. It's not a joy with an opposite. It's I just feel it bubbling up right now. It's an underlying awareness that this is good. That's joy. And that never goes away. When you can get to that place where you know that's the foundation of all that is, all the bumps and all the trials are so much easier to handle.
Yeah. I mean, that's the sort of joy that really welcomes in the full spectrum of the human and spiritual experience. That I'm willing to experience the full range of all of this. And that's joy. That's bliss. That
Yeah.
is bliss.
Yeah.
That is what we're looking for. And to me, bliss is when you can attain that, when you can find it, when you commit to it, and when you live that way, you're living an awakened life. And Suzanne, I know that you have so much to say about that. So please share with us what steps would you recommend for people as they're moving into this awakened life?
Well, I have on my website a page about the awakened way. It's a way of living in awareness of who and what we are. And the three principles of the awakened way are understanding that you are a beautiful soul who exists in multiple dimensions at once. And that number two, you're part of one big web connecting all that is, that you start seeing the God winks, the synchronicities, the more you go with the flow. And then the third is understanding that you find your way to your true nature, to home. You find your way home through the heart. So we stop thinking so much. We don't even need to plan so much. We just move our awareness to the heart and feel and allow that flow to happen. So some kind of practice that gets us out of the head on a regular basis, quieting the mind, connecting through the heart with all that is really, really important. You don't have to meditate. It could just be a walk where you practice presence. That's critical. Examine your beliefs, anything that's holding you back and holding you in a limited human state, and upgrade those. And then connect with higher consciousness regularly. I have a little app on my phone. It's called Remindfulness. It's beautiful. It sends a little alarm at odd times. Just, have I checked in with the team with a capital T lately? And all kinds of tools. Anything that is designed to get you out of the story on a regular basis is super helpful.
Yeah, I mean, we have so many thoughts in a day. I mean, there are varying reports as to how many exactly. And so often those are repeating thoughts that aren't necessarily beneficial or helpful or loving. And those are really in our head. So I love what you're saying about connecting through the heart, which is the most miraculous machine in existence, I think. And really becoming more present in your body. It really brings the thoughts down, and then you can start to sort of filter them and examine them, and awaken to what they might be saying, what messages they might have, but not necessarily letting them, create a rut in your mind.
Yeah, an interesting tool, a metaphor that my guides gave me recently was to picture the body like a test tube, but maybe it's made of ice and it's immersed in this vat of water. Water is pure consciousness, the field from which we all arise. And this test tube, because it's made of the same water, but in a more dense form, made of the same consciousness, is just floating there. That's the body. So inside the test tube is that same consciousness. What's inside and outside is the same. But we get gunked up and there's no exchange of the water inside and outside. That's the conditioned, robotic, same old thoughts that we run over and over and over. Every once in a while, a new thought gets in and then we have inspiration. But the chakras, the energy centers, they become these exchange points with the greater sea of consciousness. And the more we work on clearing them, then it's like pulling out these little plugs in the test tube, and we have this fresh energy, fresh consciousness flowing in and out all the time. And now we have a flow going, and we're not stuck in these ruts. So reconditioning our thoughts, deconditioning the ego mind is a wonderful intention to set for oneself if you want to have more of these synchronicities all the time.
Yes, and synchronicities is, synchronicity is one of my favorite words in the human language. And I love that you called them God winks, that it's sort of like, oh, hello, I'm here, I'm listening.
Yes.
Trying to get through to you.
And in my vernacular, in this metaphor, God is that whole sea, and it's the water inside you, and it's the vessel itself, which is all the same stuff.
All the same stuff, just different presentations of the same stuff. Yeah. And I love, I mean, that's just such a digestible image to use. So thank you for that. And then I would love to also circle back to the daily way, which, you know, we get so many emails in modern society, but your daily way is something whenever it comes in, I stop what I'm doing and I read it.
Nice.
And just let the message kind of wash over me. And it's just so beautiful. And I know that that comes from your connection with Sanaya. So I'd love for you to touch on that for our audience.
Yes, the messages started daily in 2009. They started as poems. All of a sudden, full, beautiful rhyming stanzas with meaning came through me in my morning meditation. And I knew I wasn't making that up because I wasn't a poet. But after a year of rhyming poems, they started to sound a little corny. There are only so many words that rhyme. And my guides were saying, do you get it now? It's not you. This is a collaborative effort. So since August of 2010, every day when I sit to meditate, there's the intention to receive a message, but I sit and then all of a sudden it's pick up your pen. Now it's pick up your iPad. I just type the message with my eyes closed, and it's just this beautiful message that inevitably people write to me and say, that was for me today, because they're universal messages of hope and healing and who we are, and reminders of again, how loved we are, how magnificent we are. Yet the most fun thing for me is when I'll get the message in the morning and later that day, I'll be guided to pick up a certain book or open something, and there's an exact wording from the message, just a little God wink that, hey, it's not you, Suzanne. We're doing this together.
We're doing this together. Yeah, you're the vessel. You're surrendering to being the vessel for this this messaging.
Right. So I post them on Facebook every day on Facebook/Suzanne Giesemann, but also you can sign up to receive them like you do by email by going to dailyway.org, and on the right side is a little column. We have thousands of people get them every day. It just blows my mind.
Yeah. And I highly recommend it to everybody listening and watching. It really is a beautiful aspect of the day, and it's so consistent. I mean, you do it literally every day. It's not planned or timed. So sometimes they come in at different times, which is also so refreshing. That it's this beautiful, you know, you expect it, but you don't know when it's going to come, and it always comes at just the right moment.
And I just want to give a shout out to my husband, Ty, we call him Saint Ty, because he supports me in all of this. He's a retired destroyer captain who didn't marry a medium, who didn't plan any of this. And yet every morning he walks the dogs, feeds the dogs, and makes our breakfast. So I have the time to sit, to get the message, and to post it. I'll sit and he'll say, you done? You ready? And then he starts the eggs, you know, as I hit send on those messages. It's such a beautiful team, and I'm so grateful to him.
Oh, that is, yes. Thank you, Ty. Thank you, Saint Ty, for your influence in that coming through in the world. And that is a beautiful thing to have, that support on the material plane, as you guide us in the spiritual realm. And Suzanne, you offer these mentorships on a regular basis, and that is a part of the free gift that you're offering our audience. I'd love for you to speak to that.
Yes, for the last 2 years, once a month, I do an online monthly mentoring. It's not just for people who want to be mediums. It's for anybody on the spiritual path that wants to hear the latest tips and tools that have come through my guides to me. They're teaching me, but I say, oh my God, I got to share this with people. I get so excited because this is good stuff. And so I just keep an ongoing file on my computer. I update it to the next month, and it fills 2 hours every month of an online webinar. And when I finish a webinar, every month I say, oh, how are we going to get enough for 2 hours next month? And it doesn't matter. Spirit just keeps providing. And the energy is just like this right here. It's just loving and connected. I love the group of the community that gathers every month for those. And there is I think a very reasonable fee for that. So many of the things I do are free, the radio show, the Sanaya messages, but the mentoring, a lot of effort goes into planning that, and it pays my web expenses and my staff expenses. So, but it's very reasonable, but the gift for everybody is one of those sessions that we've made available to
Oh
those
my, yeah.
participants.
Oh my goodness, what an incredible gift. And I really love what you just said about that limitless inspiration, because I know that a lot of people listening and again watching have incredible creative capacity. And I think sometimes we don't create, you know, we get this wonderful idea, this wonderful inspiration, and we think it's so wonderful that we have to hold on to it. We don't want to let it go, because what if we don't get something just as good? Or, you know, what if creating it isn't as good in reality as it is in the mind's eye? And so what you just said about that limitlessness, you know, every month you're like, I don't know how I'm going to come up with 2 hours of content for next month. And yet you deliver it. And then next month you're replenished with even more.
Oh, that's just one of the laws of the universe. The more you give, the more you get. You know, in the past, the old ego side, and I think people can identify with this is, oh, I just got this good info. I can't share that with everybody because then I won't be special anymore. You know, no, share your gifts, put it all out there. This is why Spirit gives us everything, so that we all grow together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Suzanne, thank you so, so much. I know that I will be going back and listening to this interview multiple times for all of this incredible wisdom, all of this incredible inspiration. Just thank you so much for being here and for the beautiful, beautiful work that you do in the world.
Well, this is a synergetic connection here, because you have this beautiful light. I know everybody can feel it. And when we put those together, I know everybody will benefit. So thank you for this summit.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to everyone for joining me and Suzanne Giesemann today for Golden Threads. May you take all of these messages, all of these inspirations, and weave them into your own life as you develop what bliss means to you. Live in joy and surrender to the love that is you, that is all around you, and that is here for you. Thank you.